One night, while watching television with Stacy, an ad crossed the television screen. It was an old woman with a wrap on her head and large hoop earrings. She reminded me of a gypsy. What she said next changed my life. Hey, my name is Soraya. Like and subscribe to our channel, and of course, smash that notification bell and maybe something amazing will happen to you that will change your life forever. The old woman held a triangular bottle of perfume in her head. She said that it was an ancient formula that when used will attract boys. My eyes twinkled as I looked at Stacy. Do you really think it would work? Stacy looked at me in disbelief before laughing out scandalously.
Do you really think that would work? You really think that something as powerful as getting boys to drool over you will cost only $19.99?
It's worth a try. Talking to boys always came naturally to you. Some of us need a little help.
Well, it's your allowance, but when it doesn't work, you can't say I didn't warn you.
Stacy shrugged. I grabbed my phone and quickly dialed the number and purchased the perfume. The person on the other end said that in 2 days my package would arrive. When the package finally arrived, I darted up to my room to open it. The bottle was already in my hand when Stacy walked into my room.
So I see your love potion has arrived.
She chuckled. I can't wait to wear this to school tomorrow. I hugged the bottle tightly, ignoring my sister's comment.
I don't understand how a brainiac like you could believe in something so silly.
Time to leave. I playfully pushed Stacy out of the room and closed the door. The next day, I sprayed on my perfume before leaving home, and I walked into school confidently. I expected boys to rush towards me and bow down and worship the very essence of who I was, but that did not happen. Well, not all at once. As I passed the cafeteria to head to class, one of my books fell, and before I could pick it up, one of the boys standing close by rushed to pick it up. I thanked him as he handed me the book and expected him to walk away, but he didn't. He continued to walk with me as I headed to class. Can you believe it? As we walked on, more and more boys joined us. Before I knew it, boys were swarming around me. I felt like a goddess. That day at school, boys went out of their way to get me to pay attention to them. There was even one boy who climbed to the roof of the school and proclaimed his love for me. I got more phone numbers that day than Stacy probably got that month. I wondered if this was how Stacy felt every day. The rush was exhilarating. I thought you said that it wouldn't work, I teased Stacy as I walked into her room after dinner that night.
Girl, please. What happened today at school was just a coincidence. Don't think too much of it.
Do I detect a hint of jealousy, sis? Because I do recall your crowd seemed a bit scarce today. Stacy threw her pillow at me and laughed.
Ain't nobody jealous of you and that wacky love potion. Now get out of my room. I have a math quiz to study for.
That night, as I prepared for bed, I thought about all the things that I would get the boys to do for me. I mean, what's the purpose of having them drool over me if they can't help me with a few things while at school, right? I carefully picked out my clothing for the next day and got under my covers. The next day, my usually pulled back hair fell loosely on my shoulders. My loose-fitting clothing was swapped for fitted jeans and a cute fitted turtleneck.
My, don't you look cute this morning?
Mom looked me over as I walked into the kitchen.
You do look cute, sis. Who's the new boy?
Stacy's eyes danced mischievously.
Oh, there's a boy. What's his name?
I sighed heavily and watched Stacy through squinted eyes. There's no boy, Mom. Stacy is just being annoying again. After breakfast, Stacy and I left for school.
Hey, since you're popular now and you're actually dressed decent, maybe you can come hang out with my friends and I after school today.
I agreed to hang with Stacy at the mall after school. We decided to meet by the school gates after school. Once we got to school, I waved Stacy off and headed to class. Today, I didn't only turn the heads of the boys, but the girls noticed something different about me as well. As the boys began to float towards me, I handed one of them my books while I locked arms casually with another. During lunch, I didn't have to stand in line to order lunch, nor did I have to feed myself. The boys did everything, even paid for it. There was so many boys that I decided to eat lunch under one of the shady trees on the school compound so we could all fit. I could feel the other girls' eyes boring into the back of my skull as I passed them, but I didn't care. I finally had the attention of the boys, and that was all that mattered. After school, Stacy and I went to the mall and the boys from school followed. Stacy tried to talk to a couple of them, but they ignored her while showering me with little trinkets and gifts that they bought for me at the mall.
So, Scott, are we on for tomorrow night?
She flirted.
Yeah, babe, I think I'm gonna ask Soraya out tomorrow.
He turned to me and smiled.
Babe, how about we catch a movie tomorrow night?
Before I could respond, Stacy glared at me and stormed off, followed by her friends. Stacy would be okay. I mean, it's not like Scott was the only guy on her agenda anyway. Through the crowd, I spotted a boy by the gadget kiosk. He was really cute. As they began to walk towards him, the boys followed. I turned around and asked them to stay there until I came back before heading once again towards the kiosk. Hi! I fiddled with one of the gadgets on the counter. When he turned to me and flashed a smile, I saw myself spending the rest of my life with him.
Hi, my name is Adrian.
I'm Soraya.
A pretty name for a pretty girl.
I blushed. I was wondering if you would go out with me sometime. Before he could say no, I quickly asked the girl at the kiosk for a pen and quickly scribbled my name and number on his arm. I handed the girl the pen and told Adrian to call me. I walked past the boys and they followed. After the mall, one of the boys dropped me home since Stacy had already left. I can't believe you left me at the mall. I stormed into Stacy's room when I got home. I watched as Stacy placed her headphones on her head and flipped through a magazine. Oh, so we're playing the silent treatment game now? What are we, like 5? Still nothing. I stomped out of Tracy's room. I couldn't believe what a brat she was being. For years, boys were at her beck and call, and now that the shoe was on the other foot, she couldn't be happy for me. The next day I walked to school alone, but from the time I got to school, my band of boys, as I fondly called them, showed up. As we passed Stacy in the hallway, she spoke loudly for me to hear.
You always know when someone isn't accustomed to being popular.
Her friends laughed. I walked up to Stacy. And you always know when someone isn't accustomed to being in the shadows. Jealous much? What's the matter, Stacy? Is my light too bright for you? I grabbed the shades off of Boy's face and flung it at Stacy. I suggest that you wear these if the light is too bright. I strutted off, leaving Stacy speechless. That day during school, Stacy and I avoided each other like the plague. And when we got home, it wasn't any different. While doing homework, a strange number called my phone. Hello?
Hi, this is Adrian. Is that the pretty girl with the pretty name?
I blushed. It definitely is. We chatted on the phone for a bit and then he asked me to go out. I hesitated. If I went out in public with the perfume, then other boys would surround me. I couldn't have that. How about you come over to my house? We could watch a movie here and have some popcorn.
Sounds great. Tomorrow night good for you?
Yeah, sure. We chatted for a few minutes again before I hung up. I squealed. I ran to find Mom, who was in the kitchen, and asked her if I could have a boy over tomorrow to watch movies. Stacy sat drinking juice by the table but didn't say anything. Mom agreed. I hugged her and ran to my room. I had to pick out the perfect outfit for my date tomorrow. The next evening, I got nervous when Adrian did not arrive at 6 p.m. as planned. I wore a short, thin-strapped blue dress. I knew it was a bit much for a home date, but I wanted to look my best. I already had the snacks and drinks ready for when he arrived. At 6:15, the doorbell rang and I answered it. I welcomed Adrian in and he apologized for being late. I introduced him to my parents who vacated the room after the introductions, but Stacy stayed. It was my dumb luck that Stacy and Adrian knew each other from summer camp. I sat quietly as I listened to them for a few minutes. Why was he paying more attention to her than to me? I excused myself and went to my room to apply more perfume. When I returned, I sat closer to Adrian and he scooted closer to me. I smiled. Stacy excused herself and Adrian and I were finally alone. We had a great night and we decided to do it again soon. Over the next few weeks, Adrian and I got closer, and he even asked me to be his girlfriend. I always made an excuse to not have public dates. We either hung out at my house or his. I told him that I would think about it and give him an answer soon. See, I was torn between finally getting all the attention I ever wanted from boys and now having to reduce that to the attention of just one boy. Was having the attention of just one boy worth it? Even though Adrian and I were dating, I was still wearing the perfume to school and the boys were still chasing me. I'm young and I should have options, shouldn't I? But one afternoon, everything changed. While walking towards the school gate arm in arm with one of the boys at school, My heart stopped when I noticed Adrian by the school gates with a bouquet of flowers. My heart sank. I told the boys to go on without me, and I went over to Adrian. He looked devastated. What are you doing here?
Is this why you don't want to be my girlfriend? So you can flirt with other guys?
Adrian, it's not what it looks like. By now, other students were looking in our direction, and I wished I could be teleported to anywhere.
It's exactly what it looks like. You don't want to be my girlfriend, and you never want us to go out in public. The puzzle now fits together perfectly. I don't ever want to see you again.
He turned and walked. Well, fine. Then I don't need you anyway. Do you not see how many boys I have to choose from? I yelled. Before leaving home the next day, I sprayed my perfume. I was determined to show Adrian that I did not need him. But when I got to school, things didn't go as I thought it would. There was no crowd of boys as I walked to class. There was no one to hold my books or to buy me a soda before class. I even dropped one of my books on purpose, but it seemed as though all the boys turned away from me. Throughout the day, I wondered if the perfume only lasted a few days and then it just wore off. I hardly remembered what was taught in school that day as my thoughts returned to Adrian and the great times we spent together, as well as all the attention that I got from the boys. It was fun while it lasted, I mumbled as I walked out of the school gates and headed home. As soon as I got home, I went into the kitchen to get something to drink.
Hey, sorry about you and Adrian.
Stacy said behind me. I grabbed a juice from the fridge and pushed past her.
Look, we have to talk.
I have nothing to say to you. As I turned to walk away, she blurted out,
It was a prank.
I turned slowly to face her with a confused look on my face. What was a prank?
The perfume didn't work. I convinced the boys at school to play along. The whole Scott thing was also just a prank. We just wanted it to be believable.
So you made me look like an idiot in front of the whole school?
Me? You began to treat the boys like slaves because you thought the perfume worked. Was that why you wanted boys to like you? I thought that by giving you a little popularity that it would build your confidence when talking to boys. But you were mean and bossy. Now the boys at school know who you really are. I hope that when you started to see Adrian, that you would stop using the silly perfume. But you didn't. So I called him and told him to meet you after school.
You did what? Before I knew what was happening, I was on top of Stacy, and we were both scuffling on the floor. Mom ran into the room and pulled us apart. We were both sent to our rooms till dinner was ready. How could my own sister do this to me? Did she think that I was so desperate for boys to like me that she needed to pull such an elaborate prank? Was Adrian a prank too? I would never forgive my sister for what she did. If you got a perfume that made someone drool over you, what are some of the things that you would make them do? Leave your answers in the comments.